Welcome to our Devos. We are talking about how to be needy. Now, I want to stop for a moment because if you're hearing this, especially, and I don't want to make it about sexism or anything, but especially as a man, if you're a man and you are really driven, even if you're a woman and you have a career and you have a lot of people that deal with you, you're like, I'm not a needy person. I'm not one of those ask for help people. I just want to stop for a moment. Because what you're thinking of course, is I want to be stronger. I'm a strong person. I'm considered a strong person. I want to back up and tell you what actually happens as you become needy. Because a lot of times what we think of as we become needy is we think that we are actually becoming incompetent, or we are becoming lazy, or we are becoming more and more useless to people around us. That's what we think of when we hear that word needy. You think of, I'm going to give to a person in need, or I'm going to reach out to that person because that person is in need. But in reality, here's an amazing thing that Scripture teaches us. Neediness leads to strength. Neediness actually leads to strength, scripturally speaking. Not in terms of what the earth looks at as neediness, but when we look at what Scripture is when it comes to neediness and depending on God, it leads us to greater strength. Let's look at what Paul says. This is when he's discussing his situation with his thorn. He has some sort of infirmity, maybe some sort of mental problem that he's dealing with. It might be discouragement, whatever it is. We're never explicitly told what it is, but we see that he goes after the Lord several times and God tells him no. But here's what's interesting. In verse 10, this is how Paul is processing this. He says, "For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong." You see, just like leadership in the Scriptures looks different than the earthly leadership. We talk about servant leadership. If we want to know what a leader looks like, a lot of times you'll look at a political king or a world ruler or a Genghis Khan or some, crazy dictator that lived. Oh, that's strong. That's a leader. Well, in reality, the greatest leader that ever existed is Jesus. The greatest leader that will ever exist is Jesus. And what did Jesus do? He served everyone. He served the lowliest of people. He's putting his hands on people who society has deemed are untouchable. He's having conversations about theology with people who religious leaders insist are not worthy of those conversations. He says, this is what leadership is. This is what God says leadership is. So that is the same thing that God does when it comes to the concept of strength. We think of strength as self-sufficiency. We think of strength as being self-made, self-taught, self-directed. We use those words freely. We use them. I've used them from the pulpit. You should be self-disciplined. You should be self-aware. But in reality, the quickest way to get stronger is by having a greater dependence and a neediness on God. The best way to become externally effective is to become internally bankrupt before the Lord and telling him, I need you. It doesn't make sense to the world. But in Scripture, the weaker you are, the more you face these things, persecution, calamities, weakness, then God's strength appears more. And then people will see you, and I've seen people go through horrible things, and I'll say it to them, you're such a strong person. They'll say, I'm not strong at all. I don't have any strength in me at all. My strength is the Lord allowing me to depend on him, and me actually using his grace each moment and becoming more and more in step with him. That's where my strength comes from. It's not originating from myself at all. There's no self in this. And the quicker you get at peace with that, then the closer you are to actual strength, biblical strength, the strength that comes from him, supernatural strength. And that strength comes when we realize just how needy we actually are.